Hey, greetings and salutations, and welcome to this edition of HeteroHIV. I'm your host and moderator, Reggie Smith. My wife Dion and I, and the board and staff of the Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation, are all honored and gratified to be partnering with so many wonderful people and organizations around the city, the state, country, the globe in an effort to educate our community about HIV and also to learn about all of the wonderful efforts being made by so many wonderful people. In addition to our virtual community for wellness, awareness, and recovery, we produce this web show called Hetero HIV live the last Thursday of each month in an effort to introduce to some and to uplift to many others the many encouraging and empowering stories being lived by people just like you. It's important for us to shine a light on the sometimes forgotten demographics, like the heterosexual community as it pertains to HIV. It's also important to discuss the available and emerging healing solutions and bring all communities together as one so that we would have a better chance of finally outsmarting this extremely intelligent retrovirus. One of the reasons we may have been having such a hard time in overcoming HIV are the psychosocial issues that have been spotlighted by stigmas and addictions surrounding HIV. We acknowledge that our beliefs, like racial, religious, cultural, as well as our experiences, like things that have happened in our past and the way that we perceive them, they all play an important role on our present day behaviors. What we found is that no matter what you know or what you think you know, it's what we do that makes all the difference in the world. I know from my personal experience that addictions change everything. My addictive behaviors around drugs wouldn't allow me to stop doing the things that caused me to contract HIV. Now, I'm not judging myself or anyone else for getting caught up in a very human condition. I'm just simply analyzing and contextualizing the fact that HIV and humans operate in, and we're looking for healing solutions. We share our stories so that maybe you don't have to go through what we've been through, or at least you'll know that you're not alone. Self-awareness is a precursor to God awareness. And if you have a problem with the word God, then let's say that it just improves our ability to rise above the battlefields of life. Before we can make any behavioral change, especially as it pertains to addictions, we often have to make a psychic change. Gaining knowledge is a key ingredient to changing the grooves in our mind that create the self-destructive patterns. A helpful tool in that regard is finding new behaviors and patterns to replace the ones that don't serve us well. We believe that sharing knowledge and positive energy and our lived experiences are a part of that human repatterning that it will take to overcome HIV and many of the other maladies that plague our communities. For that reason, we continue to invite guests to this show who you may or may not know, and they're just out here doing the damn thing in our communities and have important lived experiences and perspectives that they're willing to share. On tonight's edition of Hetero HIV, as always, we have some amazing guests. I don't know if they're seeking fame or fortune, but they certainly are leaving an indelible legacy. And we want to let you know about that now. Our first guest tonight is Dr. Larry Bryant. Dr. Bryant brings a plethora of experiences and knowledge dealing with substance use disorders, HIV/AIDS prevention, and education, diversity, equity, and inclusion training, as well as education on LGBTQ plus issues. He successfully facilitated and helped implement a statewide strategic plan for Georgia in response to the opioid and prescription drug overdose epidemic. As a result of this formative work, Dr. Bryant received a grant from the GDPH to do a multicultural needs assessment among vulnerable populations in support of the statewide strategic plan. Dr. Bryant has published over 20 peer-reviewed articles in the areas of HIV/AIDS, homophobia, racism, and tobacco use prevention, and has been a registered respiratory therapist for over 45 years, fighting on the front lines of COVID-19. As part of a part-time professor, he's at Kennesaw State. Dr. Larry?
Yes.
Still doing courses in health and wellness?
Yes.
Still got Yeah, you're still the founder of and the CEO of Passion Purpose Consulting.
Yes.
And where I met you was actually doing, you invited me to come. I was just amazed at the course that you invited me to be a part of over at Georgia State, which was HIV 101.
Yeah.
So with no further ado, let me welcome you to the show. What's going on, Dr. Larry? Can I call you Larry, brother?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can. Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm honored, as always, that my journey, my experiences have culminated into me being able to be totally transparent about who I am, what I've been through, and what I've been allowed to accomplish in these almost 71 years. And so the only word that I can think of that sort of just expresses exactly how I feel, and that is gratitude.
Mm. Yeah, we've got a lot to be grateful for. You know, I know we've been through a lot in our lifetimes. You talked about almost 70 years. You don't look it, but like they say, we don't look like what we've been through.
Yes.
Where you from, Larry? And just to give us a little bit about your background, because really the theme of today's show is not allowing our past to dictate our present and our future. And you obviously, your past is not dictating your present and your future. Tell us a little bit about your past so that people can see a little bit about the metamorphosis that your life has been through.
Well, I'm from the wonderful city of brotherly love. And for those of you who don't know where that is, that's in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Love where I am. That's the home of Patti LaBelle, the home of Teddy Pendergrass, the OJs, Barbara
The
Mason.
sound of Philadelphia.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad to be from there, although I've been in Atlanta for almost 30 years. But I call Philadelphia home. And I've had so when you say that our past should not influence our future, but in fact, my past help to inform my
Okay.
future. Um,
Mhm.
now I know why I went through everything that I've gone through.
Mhm.
Now I know why I was able to come out of an addiction that I thought I would die from the use of drugs in Los Angeles, California, back in the 80s.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
was such a dark period in my life where I was just so hopelessly addicted to substances that I became homeless. So I know what it is to sleep out in the park in the rain at night and to have nowhere to go, to be hopeless, to be so isolated within oneself that it just becomes just immobilizing.
Mhm.
And being able, to go through the traumas that I've gone through, being shot through my entire body, almost becoming psychotic, and really coming out of all of that really helps inform what I do today. The HIV/AIDS epidemic, I was there in Los Angeles, California, in the early 80s. And so one of the things, in fact, I guess since that bio, I really have been a respiratory therapist for over 50 years, actually. It's 50,
Wow.
you know. And I say that living in Los Angeles during that time and working as a respiratory therapist at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, we saw the first HIV/AIDS individuals come into our hospital before it was even known by any type of name. And the experience back then was really seeing how the entire healthcare system was turned upside down
Wow.
when they started to then determine that this would be a gay disease and the identification would be grid and the stigma that went behind that, the hatred that went behind that. All of that really helps inform what I do today. We went through Armageddon. back in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And going to a funeral, 2, 3 funerals a day.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Coming
Yeah.
out of all of that, being saved from, what I thought was a sure destruction, looking at the lessons learned, looking at the camaraderie of our community, even in the spite of racism, because many resources were not disseminated down to our community. So we had to depend on each other. We had to come into our own. We had to provide safe spaces for each other. And we did. We really, really rose to the occasion. And so when I stand here today and I talk about my professional experience as well as my private experience, now I know I went through all that I went through so that I could live in my purpose. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
my purpose, and that is to be able to share with an entirely new generation about the benefits of recovery, the joys of recovery, as well as living with HIV for 27 years and helping people to understand that one can thrive with living with this disease. And, my life is nothing short of miraculous. On top of everything else, I now not only am I dad, wonderful dad. As a matter of fact, my daughter just texted me, asked me for money, of course, but I'm also a granddad to a 2.5-year-old. That is the ultimate of my life, the joy of my life. Who would have known when I was sticking needles up in my arm in Los Angeles, California, underneath bridges, that this would be my life today. And so I know that I was saved from all of that so that I could be a witness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm thank you so much for sharing your story. You talked about being in recovery from drugs and alcohol, and were you in recovery when you got diagnosed? Obviously.
I was.
Mm-hmm.
I had maybe 4 years, I want to say. And I
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
diagnosed quite by accident. Quite by accident. It wasn't like I had the courage to want to face myself because I shot drugs intravenously, so I knew that I was at risk. But of course, in the words of the witch in the Wizard of Oz, please don't bring me no bad news. And I didn't.
Right. I don't want nobody bringing me no
No,
bad news.
right. And so, but it just happened accidentally that I actually went to a dentist for a dental procedure. It had nothing to do with any other physical part of me. And for whatever reason, without my knowledge or without my consent, they did an HIV test. And the first thing he did was ask me to come into his office. And that's how I got the news. And part of me was very upset because he was not supposed to do that, but he did it anyway. But I also said that was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself.
Right, right. And it made all the difference in the world. Just like being in recovery, one of the things we talk about in recovery is having a psychic change, and how much of an important part that is of us evolving into who we are. Because it didn't have to be this way. You talked about being 70. Uh, you know, time is a wonderful thing, but the quality of your life, really, man, is amazing. I mean, you have taken lemons and made a very, very sweet lemonade, and are now helping to make a change in the world. Just talk a little bit about how important it is to have that psychic change. I know a lot of people, and I say psychic change, a lot of people aren't really religiously or spiritually inclined, but I think because of our experiences, we know that it's it was beyond my. I couldn't do it on my own, but I had to get a better sense of who I am, so that self awareness is a precursor to a God awareness or rising above where I was before. Just talk a little bit about the psychic change that has happened in your life and how important it is for you now to share your experiences, and how has that crafted what you do now in terms of the courses that you've created and the people that you're serving?
That's a great question, and certainly been able to reflect on that lately, actually. And one thing that I tell people, my friends, students, colleagues, life is 10% what happens to us, and 90% the attitude that we take about what has happened. And in my darkest day, one of my darkest days of my addiction, I was shot point blank, and the bullet went through my entire body, pierced my lungs, and landed right on the surface of my skin, right next to my spine. And although coming up, I was, of course, a member of the church and went to church. I was brought up in the church, but, there was this sort of separation, if you will, between my sexuality and sexual orientation and my spirituality. I could never really sort of coalesce.
The meeting's full.
But when I was in that ambulance going into the emergency department, I remember saying, God, please do not let me die like this. Because the first thing that the physician said was, take him to the operating room. He's bleeding very badly. Take him to the operating room. And I never will forget this moment that was just so transformative for me. And I said to God, please, please do not. My mother would never understand it. My family wouldn't understand it. And I tell you, literally, when that prayer ended, so did the bleeding. And I remember, and this was almost 40 years ago, but I remembered very clearly. He said, all I need to do is put a device in you to reinflate your lungs, the underwater seal. But other than that, he says, young man, you are fortunate because that bullet landed right next to your spine. And all he did was make a small incision, took the bullet out, but there was some remnants still remaining. And I stayed in the hospital for about a week. And although I didn't get into recovery right away, it let me know beyond the shadow of a doubt that there was something out there that was working on my behalf. There was something out there that was protecting me. Not just one of the incidents. There were many, many, many more. So the second transformation is losing the desire to use. When that is taken from you, there just is a psychic change, a metamorphosis that happens unlike anything a human could experience. Because when you were hopelessly addicted to a chemical, and then all of a sudden it's removed, it allowed me the kind of freedom that I'd never experienced before. And I'm talking about for myself, it was a 12-step program.
Okay.
Everybody recovers the same way. Not everybody goes through the same pathway, but that's the pathway I came through. And so I said to myself in early recovery, just in gratitude, whatever I can do to make a difference in this world around HIV and around substance use, I will dedicate my entire life to that. Because that freedom from addiction, only individuals that have experienced that will really, really know what I'm talking about. And so the other thing is, I've always loved education. I've always loved to learn. I've always loved teaching. And so the first thing, the other transformation was education for me. And so I had the privilege, with the support of my 12-step family and colleagues, encouraged me to go back. I had an associate's already in respiratory therapy, but they encouraged me that if I really wanted to do this work, if I really wanted to help people that are going through what I had gone through, that, I could benefit from going back to school. So I went back to school and I got my bachelor's in social work from Temple University in 1994, right before I came to Los Angeles. Came to Atlanta. And when I got here, I met a young lady who sort of like a mentor and a recovery person. And she was in school at Emory University in the School of Public Health. And she said, we had a conversation with her. She says, you ought to come over, because I, kind of shared my desires and what I wanted. She said, you should come on over to Emory University and put an application in for our School of Public Health. And I said, okay. And I'd taken the GRE and really didn't score that well, to be honest with you, because I never considered myself the sharpest knife in a drawer. But nevertheless, he says, I'm going to take you to this person. And this person, Dr. Ronald Braithwaite, and I were just saying his praises because he didn't have to do it, but he did. But he was interim chair of the program. And I went, and she took me to his office. And I shared my story, my life with him. And he said, you know what? We need people like you in our program, because most people here have a professional experience, but they don't have the personal experience. And he literally took my hand, walked me over to registration. And of course, there was my experience that captivated him as well. And next thing I knew, in 2003, I think it was, we were walking down the aisle at Emory University with a master's in public health. Who would have known? And that same young lady told me, well, you should go back and get your doctorate. I said, no, I draw the line in the sand. I'm not going back to school. It's just too much work. Next thing I know, I'm back at the University of Georgia in their adult education program with a focus on lifelong learning. And in 2008, we graduated with a PhD in adult education. And so these little milestones along the way have been transformative and really have reiterated my purpose for being. And I know oftentimes we say, the day that you were born is not necessarily the most important day of your life. And even the day that you pass on, that you transition, is not necessarily the most important. When we look at that tombstone, what is most important is that dash. And what is it that you did for this world? What did your existence mean to the world? And then that became the catalyst for the work that I do. And I believe very strongly that the things that we've been delivered from, that we've moved beyond, we can best sort of share that with the world to help them achieve the same kinds of freedom that we have.
And thank you so much. Every question that I wanted to ask you, you've already answered. I guess I wanted you to share with others the importance of taking our life experiences, our lived experiences, and doing something positive with them. And then you talked about, I know people would often say, I changed my lifestyle. So I stopped eating meat. I stopped smoking cigarettes. And I'm sure people would say, oh, you just did that because you were diagnosed with AIDS. You was diagnosed with HIV. And I don't know. Maybe that might be the case. But whatever the case may be, being diagnosed with HIV has been a wonderful motivation. Recovering from drug addiction has been a wonderful motivation. And with the freedom and the grace that we have been given comes responsibility. And that responsibility for me, it comes in the form of sharing and using the gifts that we have. And God has placed me amongst so many wonderful people like yourself that are doing such, and I was talking about this with my producer, Chris, right before the show, that often we wished that our eyes could be cameras so that we could record what we see. Because if people could see what I see, and if people could see what you see, then they might be changed and moved, and we may have a better world. And that's all that we're looking to do. In lead up to the show, I asked, and I said, I don't know if you're seeking fame or fortune. Don't know if that's the case. But I do know that you are leaving an indelible mark, an indelible legacy in this world. And it is my honor and pleasure to use this platform and whatever other opportunity that I may have to share you with the world and your message, and to let people know that I know Dr. Larry, and it's not a name dropping situation. So, we don't have the entire world. But thank you so much, Larry, for coming and sharing a part of you with the world. Is there something in a minute or so that you can share, and if people want to contact with you and get in contact with you, or something that you want them to know about? What will be your word to the world? What's right with you today?
What I'd like people to sort of remember, and that is a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King. And he goes on to say that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And that's where I'm at. That's why I do the work that I do, because there have been so many people throughout the years who weren't necessarily affected by HIV, but because of the love that they've had for our community, they lent their money, they lent their resources, they lent their souls, because they know just because I might not have HIV does not mean that it either directly or indirectly affects me. I might not be recovering or in recovery, but nevertheless, my family member, my extended friends may be impacted. So all of this impacts us individually. Mm-hmm. And so when we can approach our communities with more empathy, with more understanding, with more honesty, and helping to know and understand, and we say this all the time in our recovery communities, regardless of what our differences are, we are more similar than we are different. And that's the message I'd like to leave with you.
As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that would tear us apart,
all will be well.
All will be well.
Yes. And one more thing.
Okay.
I just want to say to you, Reggie and Dion, that I think the work that you are doing is just monumental. And so I want to give you roses while you're alive. And thank you for allowing this platform. And, you've done monumentous things, but I'm feeling the best is yet to come.
When I grow up, I want to be just like you, Larry. Well, I want to thank you. Thank you again for joining us. This is Dr. Larry Bryant, and his accolades precede him, and he'll continue to leave a legacy that we'll just continue to watch evolve. And I'm your host, Reggie Smith. Look, I want to remind you that we're giving away $100 to anyone who's here today. Make sure that you put something in the chat. Let us know that you're here. And when we have the drawing at the end of the show, you can win $100. And we've got more. I've got another fabulous guest that we're going to talk to in just a few moments right after this.
Programming on Jazz 91.9 WCLK is made possible in part by the Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation, a proud WCLK business member. The Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation is a wellness awareness recovery network virtual community. They help people affected by HIV, those in recovery from substance use disorders, and persons looking for support to change habits that lead to poor health. The Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation is a judgment-free safe space zone for sharing healing solutions, finding understanding, and empowerment. More information at www.theRDSF.com.
I think my favorite role play thing I've ever done was like the boss and secretary thing. It's just good to feel like a guy's a boss and I get to be feminine. I've done that in my regular relationships because usually I'm the one who makes more money. So it can be weird with men when you make more money than them, even dating. It's very hard for them to almost see you feminine sometimes when you make more money than them. It's almost like, oh, you receive less because you have more, in a sense, especially if he's not able to do even as much as you are able to do for yourself. It's kind of like sometimes you gotta hold your hand on yourself just to not make him feel bad, stuff like that. So those type of role plays, I feel like, help balance that energy out, help balance that dynamic out in a relationship.
It was a scary moment when I first found out, but I didn't soak in it. I just said, wow, I need to educate myself so that way I can do something to help. I work for a private doctor's office that offers counseling to HIV positive individuals. My job is basically educating them about HIV and helping them live a longer life, by being compliant to the medication and being that support to them. HIV is so on the rise now. It's not only affecting men, it's affecting women as well. Professional women, not just someone that's out there, using drugs. It's affecting mothers, women in the church. It don't discriminate. It's affecting married women. I get married women in my office and say, I didn't know my husband was positive, and they married.
Georgia, and there's so many wonderful advocates that are living here in Atlanta and across the nation that are really bringing a message of hope. And it's really helping us to remain aware of all of the different situations that people are involved with in terms of HIV. One of those other advocates that are here in Atlanta, Georgia, that I have the pleasure of knowing is Masonia B. Traylor. She's a two-time Emmy-nominated, committed mother of two. She's garnered international recognition as a community champion in the fight against HIV. Her diagnosis with HIV was as a result of being pregnant in 2010. She's devoted herself to the cause as a passionate activist, advocate, and consultant. Her work primarily focuses on youth, women, and productive justice, advocating for their rights and well-being. Masonia is an alumna of the Andrew Young School of Public Policy, project officer and implementation coach at Gilead Compass Initiative. Her focused areas are advocacy, leadership, executive coaching, capacity building, case management, research, and organizational change. Masonia is a campaign ambassador for the CDC, Kaiser Family Foundation, Therotechnology, and she serves as the vice chair of the Metropolitan Atlanta HIV Services Planning Council. She's done so much in our community, but really, she is an example of what a wonderful mother and woman of power is. She's the executive director and founder of Lady Burgundy, a nonprofit agency right here in Georgia, is working to address the stigma and bring attention to research, barriers to care, and education surrounding the life-threatening challenges of people like herself living with HIV/AIDS. Without further ado, let me welcome to the show, Masonia B. Traylor. How you doing, Masonia?
Doing good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. We'd be here all day trying to read your credits, girl.
And that's the short version, right?
It is. It really hasn't been that long. It doesn't seem like that long. You were diagnosed in 2010?
Yep.
How'd you get from there to here? How did you get from there to here in 14 years? It was like 14 years. It took, for the first 14 years, we didn't even share with anyone what our diagnosis was. Was it long after you got diagnosed that you started being public about your life?
Well, it's not quite 14 years yet. We're about halfway to the 14. It'll be 14 years at the end of October. And for me, I don't like being in fear, and I don't like not being able to be vocal. And because I was really upset and angry, I was like, I can't be in this by myself. Somebody got to talk. Where y'all at? Where y'all at? Help. What happened here? Like, how did I get here? Wait a minute. If I got this, y'all got a problem on y'all hand that y'all not talking about, because I'm not even doing much. And I got people out here that's doing way more than me. So what's going on? And then I just kind of asked the questions and just started deep diving into, why is this happening? Where is this happening? And piecing things together. And got requested to share my story on CNN, and also at an event at Spelman College. And um, my perspective on, like, where I stood in my diagnosis at 23 years old as a college student, it was like I didn't want anybody to have to experience the feelings that I was experiencing at the time. And as I was seeking out community for, like, I needed to find a young Black girl or a woman that was like still wanting to date, still had dreams and aspirations of being a mom, or had given birth, how they have the hard conversations with their children about their diagnosis. Like, I needed that and I yearned for it terribly. And the more I yearned for it and the more that I started receiving it, the more I started realizing, oh, there's something really here that's missing. And I the more I kept looking for it, I couldn't find it. So it's, as they would quote Gandhi, become the change that you want to see. And it has not been an easy journey of becoming the change I want to see, because I'm still searching for spaces and now creating them because they still don't really exist.
We found ourselves in the same situation. My Dion and I looked at the situation for heterosexuals, and it seemed like there was a lot missing. That people, we didn't see our stories in people, but we did see folks like yourself telling your story. And then I was really impressed by watching you with your daughter, and I know you have a 20-year-old son as well. Um, but you and your daughter is how old? You were pregnant with her when you got diagnosed, correct?
Yeah, I was 23. No, I was 23 when I got diagnosed and pregnant with her. Gave birth to her at age 24 that following year, but she'll be 13 years old. So she's 12 right now, and um yeah, I'm really proud and excited for her in her growth and learning around that reproductive justice piece when it comes to just Black women. And she has such a neutral ground for talking about HIV. She does have an understanding that it can come with some negativity when people are like talking and whatnot. But like, as of right now, she's still in a neutral space of, it's not a big deal, but it is kind of a big deal.
And it's all different types of situations. My son, we were pregnant with him when I got diagnosed, and we didn't say anything about it for the first 13 or 14 years of his life. We just didn't see a need because there was nothing that anyone could really do. But do you treat your daughter differently because you were diagnosed as a result of your pregnancy? I mean, because I think sometimes with my son, we seem to feel like he was the golden child because he was the reason why I was diagnosed. I heard Dr. Larry was talking about earlier, I don't know if you heard, that he was diagnosed as a result of going to the doctor or, to the dentist. And I believe that a doctor may have seen something earlier but didn't say anything. I mean, do you treat your children differently, your son, your daughter differently? Is there, what is it like trying to raise a child being positive?
I had my challenges in the past. I'm older now, I'm 37. And I think when it comes to my kids, like, they've experienced two different moms, like two different versions of me, because I had my son when I was 16 years old. So that was one version of the woman that I've become. And then the more mature version was like hit with an HIV diagnosis and a second child that's a girl. So that's the thing, okay? And girls, to me, they are a bit different and they are a little more confronting, as like, it's almost like, when you have a man who has a son, it's kind of like, oh, there's some introspective stuff that kind of happens. And it's so interesting to watch my friends who have girls and like how they're shifting and changing themselves. But when it comes to my diagnosis, I did wonder, like, if I would treat my daughter different, but that has not been the case. I found out that I was pregnant with her 2 weeks after my diagnosis. I found out that I was pregnant with her while I had already experienced I was living with HIV. And for me, for the depression that I was experiencing at that time, um, I really didn't. I cared about my kids, like them being alive and well, but they were not my priority once she got here.
Mhm.
Like, okay, because I didn't focus on HIV while I was pregnant. It wasn't until afterwards that I was able to say, like, oh, now it's time to deal with it. The baby is here. She's fine. Now it's time to process these thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and the people that you may have come in contact with within the time frame that you got diagnosed. So, like, what's up? Let's go look at this. Um, what it's like raising my kids, because I'm public with my status, they have garnered a certain level of empathy and compassion and confidence in
Mhm.
just being who they are. And I think being someone living with HIV is like there's a certain way of being that I am with people in regards to that empathy. Like, oh, everybody got their stuff. So even if I wasn't public and nobody knew what was going on with me, I'm pretty sure people, they're not gonna show me a certain level of compassion and empathy because they don't know what's going on. But because they're aware, there's a certain, conversation that they're having internally as they're choosing to have a conversation with me, right? They're being confronted because it's public, right? They're being confronted because they're aware. Um, but if anything, I feel like it has strengthened my children to be, I want to say, for them to sift through the BS in people is the best way I can say that. They're able to say, oh, that person right there, they're authentic. That child right there, they might be going through something. Like they have some of that. And then they also had the compassion of, dealing with a mom who's chronically ill. And that creates a whole nother world for them too. So if anything, it has caused us to have like very authentic, genuine people who are meaningful in being in our lives rather than having people that are going to be like flaky or in and out or just disingenuous overall.
Mhm.
Um, just because of how confronting HIV is. Yeah, and I love the fact that they're so aware and educated that like with my son, if he wanted to date someone living with HIV, he's so equipped and knowledgeable about what it would take to do that. Even when it comes down to PrEP, and he's even more understanding and compassionate towards the LGBTQ community, like they're allies because they've been in this work with me and acknowledging like, oh, wait, Mom, so you mean to tell me that they used to say that this is something that's only for gay people, but you're not gay. So what does that mean? And so we've had to unpack those type of conversations too. And I just think it's really dope that they're equipped with that without anyone like giving them a whole nother narrative that's not the truth.
Yeah, that's
The
extremely important.
reality.
Extremely important. And you represent a wonderful demographic. When I say wonderful, I mean the fact that you're sharing your story because there's so many women that are either mothers or want to be mothers or, just even the whole issues around surrounding reproductive justice. These are conversations that we need to be having. And your ability to overcome the stigma and to impart that wisdom to your children. We hope that our kids will take the information that they say it's one thing to know stuff, and it's another thing what we do. Case in point, my son is the father of 3 young girls, and we would have hoped that he would have wore condoms as a result of knowing what my status was and knowing what's out here in the world. But we're extremely grateful and understand that everything happens the way it's supposed to, and that we're tasked now with educating the next generation. So it would be an interesting show to have the young people come in and tell us exactly what their perspectives are, especially our children watching us as we're public about living with the virus, because at some point, sometimes they have issues with what their friends think, or they may be stigmatized in their own ways. But I wanted to remember that you are a two-time Emmy nominated. How in the heck did that happen, Masonia?
Well, two-time Emmy nominated producer is where we landed on the ballot. Just thanks to Zeb Newman, who is the director of a film called Unexpected. And when I say we, I'm saying the team, but in particular to specify CC, one of my best friends, Sierra CC Colvin. She and I are co-stars in a documentary called Unexpected, and it's on Hulu right now. It's been on Hulu since World AIDS Day, and it got nominated for best daytime original film and best original song. So it's a short docu-series. It's about 22 minutes long, and produced by the Shirley Ralph, the actress, now known from Abbott Elementary, and also known from it was just on the TV the other day. Not TV, but it was on TV the other day. It's called Sister Act.
She's a long-time advocate, and
yeah.
She's done a lot of work, a lot of wonderful work around HIV. We've got a trailer from that movie. Let's take a look at that, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about what it was like to make the movie and how you feel now that it's out. Let's take a look at that trailer.
My name is Masonia Traylor, and I've been living with HIV for 10 years.
Stigma's still real, and it looks different for women, particularly in the South, where they can't tell. They won't show up. They are living in isolation.
You don't want to be known as the person living with HIV or the girl that got AIDS. My first question was, can I still have kids? He said, just as long as you realize that all your kids are going to be orphans.
If you fix it for Black women, you fix it for everybody. And so if we don't fix it for ourselves, we can't fix it for anybody.
How can we help?
It should be coming soon to your TV right now. It's on Hulu. It's on Hulu, and you can check it out. I did, and I'm sure that you'll be moved as I was. How was it to make it, and how does it feel to, see yourself on the big screen?
Well, how was it to make it? So, every time when I do see the trailer or have an opportunity to do a screening of it, I'm like, dang, I was so wore out. I look at it, I'm like, I was really pushing through during that time. I was so tired. And just looking at it, I didn't expect, or it's no pun intended, I didn't expect for it to become what it was. It was just more so oh, you want to focus on Black women in the South. I'm interested in part of that, but if you're going to do this, and I need you to practice the meaningful involvement of people living with HIV and AIDS, and what that looks like is receiving our feedback on what's being created here, even though you're capturing our stories. And so grateful to have been a part of the process, and even down to the director saying, hey, we're putting in for an Emmy, we've been nominated, but we made sure we put your names on the ballot. It wasn't that we knew we were going to be on the ballot. Someone was very intentional about, hey, you weren't just talent in this process. You gave feedback, you helped with the editing, you helped with the producing of the film at large. And so for it to get on the big screen, it's like, wow, I know we've reached millions of people before in other ways, but I wonder what's this going to be like for other people. Like, what does it mean to them? What will this mean for them? And the feedback thus far has been just something indescribable, in the sense of like how people are expressing. And just I don't watch TV and I don't watch a lot of like YouTube or anything. So it's kind of like we did this thing, it's over there, it pops up every now and then. But like overall, I'm just grateful that it has been able to impact people in a way that, like you can only aspire to, and not really like it's more than just an aspiration. It's like, wow, that's really doing something for people beyond like just HIV. It's like showcasing how healthcare is, lacking in the South. It's showcasing what's happening here in Georgia at large. And, it's really showcasing how, we still have a problem when it comes to navigating the HIV diagnosis. And I love when Desan says, if you fix it for Black women, you fix it for everyone.
That's right.
And
That's right.
so that's that prioritization. I get that if you take care of a Black woman, she's going to be able to handle, take care of, build up thousands of people. And I've experienced for myself and my friends, like when we are okay or when we're better than okay, the way that we impact people left and right, it is like it's untouchable. Like it's not even a ego driven thing. It's just something that's within ourselves. It's like we get being at the bottom of the totem pole. And if you take care of us, we're gonna take care of our men, we're gonna take care of our children, we're gonna take care of different genders, sexualities, whatever that looks like, we got it because you're human and we love you. But when we're not well, nobody's well.
That's right. That's right. And we love you for the work that you're doing. The movie is such a wonderful representation of the mercurial rise that your life has been as it pertains to the short amount of time, because it's relatively short amount of time that you were diagnosed to being engaged and being impactful in not only in HIV, because the HIV is really just it's an opportunity to for us as human beings to blossom into what God would have us, or what the higher power would have us to be in the world. And so those principles that you're espousing, and the places that you're taking the message in the rural South is very much needed. So you're doing wonderful work that I'm sure will last forever. Thank you for mentioning Desan, because she also just so many wonderful Black women that are doing this work here in the South and across the nation. And we just
I'm sorry, Reggie. I also want to highlight like Crystal Martell from the Well Project. And she's also a producer of the film, and she's the ED of the Well Project, and she identifies as a white cisgender woman. And I recognize that in our work, allyship is so important. Like, what can we do without our allies? Not much. We won't go far without our allies. And so I just would be remiss if I did not acknowledge her, as well as Linda Scruggs, who's also in the film, that's giving voice to power in the film, who also prioritizes Black women who are living with HIV, that are in need of support in navigating their diagnosis over the years as a long-term survivor. She doesn't necessarily state it in the film, but she definitely does the work. And I just know that without the allyship, we wouldn't be able to get as far as we are. And I'm really appreciative of it.
And we are as well. And the allyship is a big deal, because we all have to come together as one. And if we're going to not only eradicate HIV, but to make the world a better place to live in. And none of us is going to be here forever, even though I plan to be here for another 137 years up to 200. But, we just want to make it as pleasant a place as we possibly can while we're on the planet. Listen, Unexpected is the documentary. You can see it on Hulu. Masonia is here in Atlanta, Georgia. We didn't even get a chance to talk about Landmark and all of the other wonderful principles. So we're going to have to do something else and do something more. But whatever we can do to uplift the work that you're doing, Masonia, please let us know, and we're here for you. And allyship is something that we're big on. So as we continue to grow with our organizations, let's work together to do that. All right?
All right.
All right. All right. So thank you very much. It's Masonia B. Traylor and Dr. Larry Bryant. They've been here and in the communities doing wonderful work. And we're glad that we could help to introduce them to you today. We've got more, and we're going to come back. We've got a couple of other things that we got to do. Let's run the giveaway right after this. How about that?
Hi, my name is Yvonne, and I'm 24. I'm your average young professional in Atlanta. I have a boyfriend. I am HIV negative, and I want to stay that way. Speaking out and using my voice about HIV and AIDS is really important because not only do I want to respect myself and respect my partner, I want my girlfriends to be safe. I want my family to be safe. I would definitely tell any girlfriend, okay, well, make sure you got your condoms on you. Not to sound corny or anything, but that kind of thing is important, and I think that we should have that in conversation casually. It's something that we have to take seriously just because there's so many people out there walking around not knowing that they're infected. This is something that can happen to you. If you're having sex, go ahead and get tested. Respect yourself and respect your partner. It's as simple as that. I've got a long life ahead of me. I have dreams. There are so many things that I want to do and accomplish. And with small steps like getting tested and taking care of myself in general, that's what's going to allow me to be able to do those things.
So we're working with a bunch of our partners to try to do the best that we can to make sure that you get information and that we provide education for you in a way that is different from your regular webinar. And so we can find many more ways that we can work together to share healing solutions. One of those things that's coming up is an event that our partner, the HeteroHIV Society, is having on August 3rd, Saturday, August 3rd. From 6:30 to 8:30. It's going to be a bus ride to the Legacy Museum and Montgomery Riverwalk. You remember the Riverwalk. Don't throw your cap in the air. You remember the white chair. But this time we're going down for a status neutral event. It's going to be a chartered bus that'll be leaving from the headquarters at 2193 Cascade Road in Southwest. That's right down on Cascade Road, and it'll be returning to the same location. If you like some information, you can email info@HeteroHIVsociety.org. That's HeteroHIVsociety.org. All right. We're going to make that. We're going to take our granddaughters. It should be a really fun day, and we hope that you'll join us. All right, let's get to that. Let's get to the giveaway. We want to thank all of you for being here. $100 is a way that we go round and round and look who's in the house. Yvette is here. Lolita Hunt Robinson is our winner today. Thank you so much, Lolita, for being here. And please continue to spread the word about hetero HIV. We're just looking to find ways to create some different imagery around HIV and some different messaging so that we make sure that we reach everyone. And people get a chance to tell their stories and have a platform for doing that. We don't have to wait on the major media to do that. Look, it's been loads of fun, but we got to run. Much love to Gilead Sciences for the funding and supporting of this series. Also want to thank our team, Ty Freeman and Tanisha Baker, for their help for this web show. Also want to say thanks to our good friend Chris Stone, who's our producer for today for Run My Stream, and a special thanks to all of you who participated in the program, Dr. Larry Bryant and Masonia B. Traylor. As promised, we gave you the $100, and we'll be here the last Thursday of each month, and you can find us on demand. Recordings are on Facebook and YouTube at our page at the RDSF. We encourage you to join our Wellness Awareness Recovery Network, which is a virtual community that's a safe space for sharing healing solutions. We've got support groups, and we do exercise there to house music every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, except on Wednesdays. Our contact information is going to be on the screen after the closing credits, so stick around for that, all right? Look, one of my heroes, Harriet Tubman, said she freed hundreds of slaves, but she could have freed thousands more had they only known that they were slaves. Harriet might not have been focused on what history would say about her. She was just focused on what she was doing. She simply did what was necessary to make herself and others free. We thank God for our guests and their time. I want to remind you that yesterday is history and tomorrow is still a mystery. So let's just keep the focus on what's going on right now. And if we do that, I'm sure we'll have our hearts and minds in the right place. Remember, unity does not need uniformity. We all want to be loved, so let the healing continue. Until the next time, peace and blessings.